Hey, Monica here. Thanks for listening to this clip from our full podcast. Stick around while we build you the best place for conspiracies, weird history, true crime, and fun facts. Now, on to the clip.
The control that was exerted over the women in this group, I found it mind-blowing. I just couldn't understand how anyone would agree to this. They had to send pictures of what they were going to eat and count their calories. Their master had to approve whatever they ate. If they failed to text back after their master texted them within a certain number of seconds, it wasn't even minutes or hours, they were required to do penance. And so the penance could be anything from taking a cold shower for X number of minutes to standing up for X number of minutes, going without food for a day or two, all sorts of things as punishment for not being ready. They called it being ready. Are you ready? And Alison really exerted her power over this other girl named India Oxenberg. And India, you sound like you have a question.
Oh, India, that name is very familiar. I was going to say, how do I know that?
So India's mother is Catherine Oxenberg, and she used to be one of the actresses in Dallas when it was a big hit on TV. Catherine took her daughter to one of Keith's classes in California when she was 19. What do you think?
Well, I'm just kind of shocked. It makes me wonder, did Keith decide who had the master-slave relationship? And then is it because they were both in Hollywood that Alison Mack got with India? I think that is just intriguing to me that the more famous names coming up here were also connected, considering this was a group of hundreds, if probably not thousands at some point, of people.
Well, that's part of the power play, right? Because how they were able to recruit and maintain people was by having famous celebrities in their organization. If you see one of your favorite celebrities there moving up the ranks and doing everything they're told, you're more likely to follow their lead because you look up to them and respect them even though you don't know them. So the celebrity aspect to growing this cult was very important. But how Alison became India's master, they don't really go into. At some point, India was also required to recruit slaves to go underneath her. But I'll get to that in a minute. I really want to talk about how India ended up leaving NXIVM and the catalyst behind breaking up NXIVM. And that has to do, it's a three-part process. One of it is, his name is Frank Parlato, and he was once employed by NXIVM as a publicist, and Keith fired him because he accused Keith of embezzling $90 million. So Frank decides to get some revenge and reports NXIVM to the FBI in 2015. Nothing happened. Then he decides he's going to write an expose regarding certain aspects of what's going on in DOS to the women. When he decided to do that, people took note. Sarah Edmondson, whom we've mentioned, comes clean to her husband that what was really going on in DOS was this master-slave relationship. And it went so far as they would brand the women in the group. They had a doctor who was in the group, and they branded some sort of symbol on all the women without anesthetic, and that was it.
Did the women get branded against their will? Was it a type of torture, or was it kind of a mixture?
You could say it was against their will, but it wasn't because they agreed to it. But how much will could they really exert?
Correct. Okay.
So how much could they say no if they wanted to stay in the program? The program or the group already had blackmail material on them. Photos had forced them to do things with Keith sexually against their will, but they were complicit. So
yes.
It's a very fine line because no one felt like they could say no.
I understand.
Frank is a big part of it. Then you bring in Sarah. Bonnie had already opened Mark's eyes and he was digging deeper. You have Sarah, who finally goes public with DOS and the branding in 2017. And there's a photo of her on the cover of a newspaper. All of a sudden, the lid is blown off. Not to mention the third piece to this triangle that blew up NXIVM is Catherine Oxenberg, India's mother, who once she realized her daughter was becoming more and more isolated, she was only focused on NXIVM, Keith, and moving forward. She wasn't listening to anyone else. Catherine read these exposés and was worried for her daughter. She really felt like she needed to save her daughter. she was a force to be reckoned with as a mother, which I respect. She went to no ends to make sure the FBI listened, to make sure that other law enforcement listened, hire attorneys, and work with Frank Parlato about how to dismantle NXIVM and go after Keith and the people behind DOS. So as I watched the documentary, that's what came out for me, is that it was a combination of Catherine, Frank, and Sarah blowing up NXIVM from the inside.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe if you want more conspiracies, weird history, true crime, and fun facts.